In 2014, Beijing formalized a strategy to advance its semiconductor industry rapidly and soon set the goal of reaching 70% chip self-sufficiency by 2025. 5 years later, by 2019, Beijing had allocated more than 1.5 trillion renminbi, or $232 billion US dollars, to support Chinese companies in poaching talent, obtaining technologies, and cracking up production. However, the effort did not generate the intended result. According to IC Insights, cited by Yahoo, China produced only 16% of its demand for semiconductors in 2020. If production by foreign companies such as TSMC and Samsung is removed, China's semiconductor self-sufficiency rate in 2020 was only 6%. In 2021, its chip imports totaled nearly 350 billion, up 24% from the year before. What is Beijing trying to do now? What's its new strategy to cope with this challenge? Hello, welcome to Lei's Real Talk. I'm Lei. On January 30th, the International Institute for Strategic Studies of Beijing University released a report titled Sino-U.S. Strategic Competition in the Field of Technology, Analysis and Prospects. It compared the U.S. and China's technical capabilities in IT, artificial intelligence, and aerospace. The IT industry is further divided into semiconductors, communication equipment, and software. Interestingly, this report was removed a few days after it was published, causing more interest and wide speculation about the contents. The exact reason for the removal is unknown. Still, some experts say that the report's pessimistic, or rather realistic outlook at China's position in the U.S. China tech war is not consistent with Beijing's political need for favorable publicity. I think the report might accidentally disclose information that Beijing didn't want to release. We know that China's espionage activities have always been a problem, but we never knew the extent and scale of it. This report might have given us some insight into the potential risk. In recent years, America and some European countries have limited visa issuance to prevent Chinese students and researchers from taking advantage of study or research opportunities. But it may already be too late. The report disclosed that of the Chinese who went to the U.S. to study artificial intelligence, for example, 88% has remained in the U.S. and only 10% returned to China. Also, the report revealed that only 34% of China's top AI talents are employed in China, while about 56% currently work in the United States. We don't know how the report defines China's top AI talents, but if over half of them are currently working in the United States, what if one day they are enticed or forced to go back to China and take the technology with them? This should be of great concern to the American government. Spying and espionage are CCP's specialties, and its agents are very aggressive. I made a video on this topic, and it's called Spy Master, and you can get more details from that. Another strategy that the CCP uses involves mergers and acquisitions. The U.S. has increased scrutiny of this type of activity in recent years, but this has not prevented the CCP from being proactive and scooping up assets. However, it's now done discreetly through low-profile investment firms. Recently, for example, the alliance of two little-known state-owned private equity funds beat out Jack Ma's Alibaba to take control over the debt-ridden Tsinghua Uni Group, China's once national champion in semiconductor manufacturing. Chinese media called the state-owned Wise Road Capital and Jianguang assets very low-key and even a bit mysterious. Even Chinese wonder who they are. Wise Road was established only 5 years ago in 2017 and Jianguang in 2014, and they are both state-controlled private equity firms. However, these new kids on the block have been aggressively buying global semiconductor companies with a purpose. In 2017, the alliance acquired Ansay Semiconductor, a subsidiary of NXP Semiconductors in the Netherlands, for $2.75 billion and renamed it to Nexperia. In 2020, it sold Nexperia to a Chinese company called Wintel Technology in a deal that the CCP's mouthpiece Xinhua said created China's largest maker of chip-integrated devices. In 2021, the Wintel-owned Nexperia acquired the largest chip foundry in the United Kingdom, Newport Wafer Fab. Nexperia was already the second largest shareholder of Newport, and now it owns 100%. Separately, the alliance tried to buy South Korea's Magnachip Semiconductor, a spin-off from Hynix Semiconductor Corp. But South Korea is currently reviewing the sale after the United States objected to the deal. Newport and Magnachip are not the only semiconductor deals launched by the Chinese. In August 2020, Wise Road Capital acquired Singapore's UTAC, the world's third largest chip packaging and testing company. A few months later, UTAC acquired Singapore's PowerTech Technology, a wafer bumping business. After purchasing overseas assets, the Chinese private equity firms often relocate production to China. For example, 1 month after completing the acquisition of UTAC in Singapore, Wise Road signed an agreement with the local government to establish a UTAC factory in Shandong province. In July 2020, Wise Road formed a joint venture with Dutch company ASM Pacific Technology, a major semiconductor packaging and assembly equipment supplier, to build a factory in Anhui province. In the same month, the company signed a contract with Germany's Siemens to acquire its 70-year-old sensor manufacturing company, Huba Control, and relocate the project to Chengdu, the capital of Sichuan province. In 2019, Wise Road Capital became the lead investor in a new joint venture with AMS, an Austria-based semiconductor sensor company that is also a supplier to Apple. This past December, Wise Road and Jianguang Alliance acquired 4 plants in China owned by the Taiwan-based ASE Group, which is the world's largest chip packaging and testing company. These active merger and acquisition activities are only part of China's chip strategy. 1 year ago, on February 25, 2021, Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said at a press conference that China needs to build a supply chain with co-interdependence, described literally as "you exist in me and I exist in you." It means that the interests of all countries are deeply intertwined and inseparable. So, as the U.S. wants to decouple and sanctions more Chinese firms in the tech war, the CCP wants to do whatever it can to latch onto the U.S. and its allies. In July 2021, Zhang Yuyan, director of the Institute of World Economics and Politics at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, said at a seminar on rebuilding supply chains that China should work to ensure interdependence in the face of the U.S. and its allies' encirclement. This strategy of interdependence is also the advice offered by KWM, a Chinese-Australian law firm that provides foreign-related legal services in China. In a July 2021 analysis of the challenges faced by China's semiconductor industry, the law firm recommended the Chinese semiconductor companies to 1. Strengthen collaboration with leading overseas companies. 2. Deeply integrate into the global semiconductor industry chain. 3. Strive to establish a relationship with overseas suppliers and customers. 4. Use China's huge market to fight for the relaxation of export restrictions to help Chinese companies obtain key materials. Last year, this advice may have been only a theory, but now it's becoming a reality. In a February 2nd report, Nikkei Asia said that Beijing plans to set up a semiconductor cross-border industry work committee, led by Tsinghua University and supervised by the Ministry of Commerce. It will commence in the first half of this year, with the goal to establish in-depth collaboration with foreign semiconductor powerhouses. According to the draft plan obtained by the Nikkei, the CCP's targets for such collaboration include American companies Intel and AMD, Germany's Infineon, and ASML of the Netherlands, among others. Let's learn the Chinese word heart as it's related to the term semiconductor chips. Heart in Chinese is xin. Does it look like a heart? When you add grass on top of the heart, it becomes the word xin, which means core or wick, like candle wicks. You add the word chip, which is pian, and you have xinpian. That's semiconductor or microchip. If you think about it, microchips are the core or the heart of an electronic device, like the wick in a candle. Both words xin and xin have the same pronunciation but different meanings. One is the heart, and the other is the core or wick. But the heart is part of the core, and semiconductor chip literally means the core chip. Make sense? Here's the video on industrial espionage and China's chip rush. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.